You're just equipping the churches with their resources to meet this need. And I think that's a great way to look at it.
We like to say we are built for disaster. We are built for response. But before that, we are built for the gospel.
That's good.
Because we infuse everything that we do in, okay, you're cutting these trees, you're working with this homeowner, you're preparing meals and helping those meals get out. How is the gospel then going to factor in? And so we try to train our volunteers to look for doors of opportunities.
Welcome to Let's Talk About That, the podcast where we dive into conversations about life and share stories of faith. We're thrilled to be on this journey with you. Whether you're a longtime listener, someone who calls the Orchard home, or you're just stopping by, Let's Talk About That is your space to explore, reflect, and connect. Join us as we navigate the intricacies of faith, spiritual formation, and daily life as we invite guests to share their stories with us. So grab a cup of coffee, find a comfortable space, and let's do this together. This is Let's Talk About That, where you can be encouraged and inspired by God's work in our lives.
Well, I'm excited about today because we have a special guest with us today, and I'm going to let him introduce himself in just a minute. Chip, unfortunately, you're not the special guest I'm talking about.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine.
Yeah, you're just a regular around here. But I'm excited. I think today is going to be really exciting, but also really informative, maybe even practical as it relates to living in Florida. And so today, without further ado, sitting to my right, I know you can't see this, but sitting to my right, dressed in his yellow shirt is Dr. David Coggins from the Florida Baptist Convention. So, Dr. Coggins, how about you introduce yourself to our people and tell us a little bit about yourself?
Okay. I am David Coggins, and that's typically what I go by. So
you didn't start with the doctor there.
You can drop the handle. So
you worked hard for that.
I did, but it was just that's what it was just work on my part. But I am with Florida Baptist Convention. I am the state director is the title that we use for my position. It has a more elaborate position in the org chart, but we go by state director across the spectrum. My role with Florida Baptist Convention is to manage and organize and lead in all operational response to disaster, both natural and man-made disasters, any kind of event that happens, to mobilize our volunteers, work with our state convention leadership, and kind of positioning them in where they need to go, what they need to do, and then lead in helping our volunteer leaders in response to when disasters happen.
So would it be fair to say that you're like the 5-star general who sits at the desk with the big map, moving the little chess pieces around, saying, you go here, you go there, we need to do this?
Yeah, kind of. I guess so.
You're the brains behind the operation.
Yeah, but
a lot more chainsaws.
Yeah, there's a lot more. There are a lot more folks that help than.
Yeah.
So in that, so
well, and I'm guessing that this is not something you've done forever. That you didn't leave seminary and start doing disaster relief, did you?
Well, some people do. I've been doing disaster relief for a number of years, since probably about 2008 or 9.
Okay.
I was in volunteer leadership with the state of Florida, in the Panhandle region where I live.
Which is where at in the Panhandle?
I live in Graceville, where the Baptist University is.
Right.
I was on faculty full time there, but I was a volunteer leader with the task force, the state task force, and then Delton Bill, who was a great director for Florida. We had a great friendship, great relationship, and when Delton retired, Dr. Green and Dr. Miles Dowdy, who's my immediate supervisor with the missions and ministry team, called me and said, would you be interested in this position? And I said, yeah, I'll be interested. Let's talk. And the Lord kind of opened that door and led us to that. So I've been involved in in DR for a long time.
Well, that's one thing that, as I've met people who are involved in disaster relief, it seems like everybody started out as a volunteer.
Hey, the most important person we have is the yellow hat volunteer. That's
so you say yellow hat. Let's talk about the significance of this. You're wearing your yellow shirt, right? And so for a lot of our people, unfortunately, over the last 2 years, I think without knowing it, a lot of our people got acquainted with yellow shirts. Probably not directly, but driving through your area, dodging down trees and power lines and things. I think people probably subconsciously began to notice that there were quite a few of these bright yellow shirts around. So talk to us a little bit about the significant, maybe the yellow shirts, but also the yellow hats that you mentioned.
Well, I'll try to do a brief synopsis historically. The official colors of Southern Baptist Disaster Relief, which is the network across the country of all 42 state conventions that all have DR ministry, the colors come over from the old Royal Ambassadors.
Really?
The RAs.
Put that together. Yeah, I remember the RAs.
RAs, and they're still, RAs are still active. We still have Cindy Bradley, our women's missions and ministry education leader, still has RA chapters. But it started in 1967 with Texas Baptist Men and their brotherhood ministry, which the brotherhood assignments were all moved to, to NAM at one point, the old Home Mission Board. But the colors of Royal Ambassadors were royal blue and gold. And because it kind of had its foundations there, they brought those colors over.
That's really interesting.
Now technically it's gold, but you can't find gold shirts quite as readily as yellow.
Might have a whole lot more guys have trouble saying I'm wearing a bright gold shirt than a bright yellow shirt.
And so that's technically the shirt. The official uniform is the shirt, the hat, and the badge, because those three identify us and validate us.
Yeah.
Our badge is our credentials.
And I think, even driving through the chaos of disaster, I think that's what's really striking about disasters. And we've experienced 3 named storms, in the last 2 years. And so I think we're well acquainted at this point with kind of the it's a little unnerving because things just kind of pause around you, and yet there's so much to be done. It's a little disorienting, I think, because everything that you normally do is kind of put on the back burner. But I think, just in my own personal experience, living through that, the chaos of it all, that the yellow becomes symbolic. It becomes almost like a stabilizing force, that there's boots on the ground, there's help has arrived. I remember driving by First Baptist, and we talked about this a little before the show started, but First Baptist in Live Oak was kind of like main camp, for lack of a better term, where I remember driving by, there's the big tent set up in the parking lot, there's the equipment trailers parked across the street, but you just drive by and there's just yellow all throughout the parking lot. And to me, when you help with something, it's different when you come from out of town. When it's your town, it's a little odd, but it was a source of relief and stability, I think, that help has arrived, that reinforcements are on the way and have arrived. Almost like that military idea of you call in for backup, you just kind of weather the storm as best you can, bullets flying around you. But then there's the sense of rejuvenation almost when the help arrives, and you're like, hey, you get a second wind and you power through and you can do this.
I'll tell you what that reminds me of. Now, David, I don't know if you're, on this train. I know that Matt is too young for it, but I used to love Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. Like, I used to love Mr. Rogers. Still do. Actually, I've read a couple biographies of Mr. Rogers. And one of his famous quotes are, when things go bad, when bad things happen, look for the helpers. Because there's always people who step up to help in tragedies and disasters. And that's one thing I love about the yellow shirts, the yellow hats, is you can look for the helpers when all these storms come through, and you can see them. So I agree. I think it's just like that symbol of hope. Hey, we're looking for the helpers. These are people who showed up to help. And I think that's really encouraging.
And it just does something psychologically. You're tired after you're cutting trees out of your own driveway or somebody else's driveway, but then it's like this second wind of energy and the psyche, the morale boost that you get. And so we were talking a little bit, having gone through this, and the people listening to this, who call the Orchard home. I mean, you lived through 3 of these named storms in the last 2 years. Talk to us a little bit about who the people are who are wearing the yellow shirts, the yellow hats, and the badges. Who are these people, and where do they come from?
Well, they come from our Florida Baptist churches. They are they're church folks. They are,
And they get paid $20 an hour to be there, right?
Yeah, they do.
I heard 25.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they're
right.
getting a raise.
In case you missed the joke there and you're listening to this, they are volunteers from our churches.
Yeah, we are all volunteers. But they come from our churches, and they are they're retired folks. They're retired school teachers. They're retired railroad engineers, dispatchers, military, police officers, self-employed persons. They are people who are still employed. Some of them are state employees that have time away. We've got a great governor that's made sure that's available to them. They're mothers and housewives, and you name it. There's across the spectrum. They are civil servants. They are municipality employees, fire, police. You name it. There's any number of occupations that have been there, but they're folks who have what we like to think of, and really our philosophy is we're allowing people that have a certain set of skills or want to develop a certain set of skills that are not necessarily an outlet in the local church to do, and then they have certain gifts to accompany those skills that God has developed in them that also may or may not have an outlet in the local church, and they pair those gifts with a compassion and a desire for ministry and for the gospel, and know that disaster relief, unfortunately, in tragedy, there's always that sensitivity to spiritual matters.
That's right.
And so they want to be able to take that opportunity to minister to people. Some of them are there because they like to play with the toys. You know, they do like, they do.
We're
like,
talking big toys, not Tonka toys.
No, big toys. They
Grown
do
folk toys.
They do like
Skid
to
steers
run
and
chainsaws, and they do like to run tractors, and they have heavy equipment, and they love that. But they also understand that that's an opportunity for
It's an open door for the gospel.
for the gospel, because we like to say, we are built for disaster. We are built for response. But before that, we are built for the gospel.
That's good.
Because we infuse everything that we do in, okay, you're cutting this trees, you're working with this homeowner, you're preparing meals and helping those meals get out. How is the gospel then going to factor in? And we try to train our volunteers to look for doors of opportunities.
Yeah, that's really good, because I think, David, one of the things that you said that didn't really click in my mind until you said it is there are men and women, and quite frankly, in my perspective, there's a lot of men sitting in our churches who are gifted in a lot of these hands-on operating equipment, getting stuff done, and there's just not typically outlets for that type of service in local church ministry. Yeah. Now, as Matt mentioned, having 3 named storms come through our area the last 2 years, we've had some opportunity. And there's one guy I'm thinking of particular from our Lake City location. Every time we sent a team out, he was there. And this isn't a retired guy. This is a guy who's got a full-time job, family at home, but he like you say, he loves doing this. He's the best chainsaw operator I've ever seen, and he jumped at it. But those only came when these storms came here. The cool thing about disaster relief is that there are men and women who sign up to respond to calls that are not in their backyard. They can respond anywhere and everywhere. And so you take that gifting and that passion, and through disaster relief, now you have multiplied opportunities to minister.
Yeah, and you'd be surprised at the number of folks who, like you mentioned, Matt, about, there's something energizing about when you've been doing it in your own yard and then you see help come and then you jump on. We have tons of volunteers who get their own property cleaned up, and then they plug in for a week or multiple weeks, when we're in response. Or they'll set theirs aside and say, I'll get back to mine when I get back home, or I'll take care of it as I can.
We had one of those examples. We had somebody from a Branford location who, when the storms came, they were helping out. And then we found out after working for a week and a half, oh, wait, their stuff needs to be cleaned up. So we were able to send a team to their house and help, because they didn't ever mention it. They just jumped right in. I'm curious, David, do you know, just kind of off the top of your head, round about how many volunteers in the state of Florida we have engaged in disaster relief?
We have between 3,800 and 3,900 volunteers. Wow. Our administration team, our ladies, do a tremendous job of keeping. They would make any pastor nervous if they were in charge of membership roles, because they will purge a membership list, brother. For that, they will purge one in a heartbeat.
That is my language right there.
They keep it. They keep it tight. And every year as we go through training, and there are people who have not responded or not renewed their badge over a number of years, they'll move those. So as far as cleared, what we consider cleared and active, that means they have a current credential. We have just over 3,800 of those.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned that, because when we say volunteers, we don't just mean folks who raised their hand, grabbed the chainsaw, and showed up. You gave them a yellow shirt and said, go. There's a process that these folks commit to and have to complete. And so this is where maybe you're more familiar than I am, Matt. I know there's a process. I really don't think I know what that process is or what it looks like.
Well, we start with, when somebody wants to be a volunteer, the first thing they need to do is do a background check. We don't have any volunteers that are credentialed that do not have a background check. We use the same system that the convention uses, and so it's a 3-year credential. So they do a background check. Well, that's cleared, then we move them kind of to the next. Then we have training for them. And this is part of what we do as the Southern Baptist Disaster Relief Network. All of the states, we have common training material, and then we adjust it for each state. So we do some things different in Florida, but we have a base for all that we do, and that's part of our agreement with all of our other states, because if I send a volunteer from Florida to Alabama or California, then that state director trusts that they've gone through and they know what they need to be doing, because there's standardized training and then adjusted. So we take them through what we call our orientation for a new volunteer, that answers, we try to answer all the questions: who we are, why we do it the way we do it, what we do, how we do it, what are the opportunities to serve, and all those things, how to handle and deal with homeowners, how to talk to them, how to listen to them, how to pray with them. And then we train them in individual ministry areas. Feeding and cleanup and recovery are the two big ones, because those are have the most direct impact on the public.
Yeah.
We're pushing out thousands of meals a day for a week, 2 weeks. Then
that's a good point to make, because I think when we say disaster relief, we're thinking chainsaws and skid steers, but you guys feed a ton of people when you set up your feeding stations.
Yeah. And then there's other ministry, our chaplaincy ministry, our admin team, our on-site management team, which manages our sites, our logistics teams, communications. And so those are ministry areas that they can use their skills and their gifts and interests, and we can train them. We go from very basic to very advanced technical kinds of training. And so they get their background check, they go through training. They're given their credentials. They can order and wear the uniform at that point. And then they become part. Our state is we regionalized our state, and so, for instance, where we're sitting right here now is Region 2 for us. We'll have coordinators in this region, and then we have state coordinators who are volunteer leaders that cover the whole state in those ministry areas. And then each region has regional coordinators to work more locally. And so they will email and keep in contact and let the volunteers know, what's happening, especially when there's a storm, where we're going, who we're needed, all the things that they need to know to get plugged in and to go on a call out.
So a question real quick. You mentioned there's somewhere between 38 and 3,900 here, but you also mentioned part of the training process is a standardized curriculum, so to speak, across states. So you gave us, when you came in, you gave us these little pins, and this is just for 2024.
Right.
But on the pin, it says Debbie, Helene, and Milton. Some of that gives you PTSD if you hear that.
Yeah.
But these are the storms that were responded to in the state of Florida in 2024. Who were some of the people who came to the state of Florida, specifically during Debbie and Helene, because those are the storms that directly impacted us here? How did some of that volunteer work and training show itself during those storms, and not just from the state of Florida?
Well, with Debbie, we didn't have quite as many other states come. We had some folks from Georgia because they're close. I think we may have had some Mississippi folks come. With Helene, we did not have as many out-of-state volunteers as we normally would have because of the way that storm.
Well, it wrecked a lot of places.
It tore up the southeast.
Yeah.
The 13 original states were destroyed. Were all affected in that. And so what normally will happen, and I'll go back to Irma in 3 years ago. When we were in the Southwest, Florida was in Port Charlotte. We had 9 other feeding locations, 9 other field kitchens set up. I don't have 9 field kitchens. Mm-hmm. So I had Texas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Missouri, Alabama, Kentucky, Louisiana, and they were all over the Southwest of Florida, from Fort Myers, actually from Sarasota all the way down to Naples. We had 32 other states that came.
Wow.
With Helene, because North Carolina and Western Tennessee, or Eastern Tennessee and Western North Carolina got hit so hard, and Georgia had a Cat 1 storm all the way across its state.
Which is wild.
That's just, yeah. Michael was a Cat 2 when it hit Albany, but Helene went Cat 1 all the way through Georgia. Georgia had 10 sites themselves. And so we did not have as many come to Florida with Helene as we would have liked to have had.
But it wasn't for lack of volunteers. They were just spread out.
They were just spread out all over the Southeast.
So that brings up a good point, because something that we talk about a lot with Impact Tomorrow, which is a huge initiative right now, a lot of talking points at our locations, is trying to just help our people understand that we don't just want to gather on Sunday, sing a few songs, hear a message, clap our hands, and say, all right, break, let's come back in 7 days and do it all again. Like, we want to have real, genuine, tangible impact in our communities. And so one of the things that I think stands out is one of the ways that we've acknowledged that is, hey, we can't do this by ourselves, from a church standpoint. And so we want to partner with other organizations. We want to partner with missions organizations. We want to partner with local agencies like the Pregnancy Care Center. Because if we're going to have real impact, we understand as a church, we are limited by the impact that we can have, because we only have finite resources, finite amount of people, finite hours, energy, time, all of that. And so one of the foundations of Impacting Tomorrow is really the need for partnership, the need to partner with other people and other organizations. And so really, I mean, that's what you're describing from a macro standpoint is, okay, part of the ways we partner is through the convention, and funds help feed people and use equipment, buy equipment, all of that kind of stuff. So that's a partnership. But even within that partnership, you guys have partnerships with other states so that you realize, hey, I don't have 9 feeding kitchens and I can't do this by myself, so I need help from other places. And so I think it just conveys, hopefully our people listening to this understand that partnership is part of the gospel. Partnership is part of the church. It's built into the fabric that you can't do everything that needs to be done. And that speaks to local communities trying to minister there. It speaks to disaster relief efforts. Like, you need other people to come alongside of you. If you're truly going to have impact, if you're truly going to be able to do what needs to be done, then you can't do it by yourself. And I think that is becoming apparent even in disaster relief work, that I need Louisiana, I need Alabama, I need Missouri, I need Texas, I need whoever, because, you know, the damage is too vast for me to even do it all by myself.
Yeah. Back in May, we were in Hopkinsville, Kentucky. They had historic flooding, and it got kind of lost in all of the other stuff that was going on. This spring has been really wild for disaster relief. But we were asked by the state director of Kentucky if we could come and take over and work that county, Hopkinsville, Kentucky County. And so we were there for nearly a month, probably 3.5 weeks. We sent teams there, and we weren't doing feeding. We were just doing flood recovery from there.
So tell me this.
It turns around on us. We get asked to come and help.
So you've been doing this full-time for a number of years now. This may just be probably not fun for you, but a fun exercise, so to speak. In this role as director, where all has disaster relief taken you personally in the United States?
Well, when I was at on the faculty at the Baptist University of Florida, Baptist College of Florida, for a number of years, we had a collegiate cleanup and recovery team. We built an equipment trailer, and so I've taken students to New York, Louisiana, Texas, Alabama. I've been to Alabama, multiple places in Florida. Did I say Louisiana? And then I took a team to Japan.
Wow.
One of our former directors.
Didn't see that.
Nope. That was out of left field right there.
Yeah. But it was after the tsunami, and we were sending teams there to work with our IMB personnel who were on the field and plugged in. And so I took a team to do rebuild. We were hanging sheetrock at that point. So after the tsunami. So
I want to maybe connect some dots real quick for some of our people. We talked about Impact Tomorrow. We talked about the impact that we want to have, where years down the road you look back and say, look what God has done because of our obedience, really is what it is, right? And obedience in a number of areas. We've kind of laid out 4 kind of main areas at our church, but one of those is next step in giving. And here's the dots that I want to connect for our listeners, but really through a story. I listened to a pastor, and he said there was a point in their church ministry where they had $4 million, and with that $4 million, they launched a new campus. And as he tells the story, he said he just caught criticism from people outside the church saying, man, how much could you do with $4 million instead of building a new building with shiny new toys and all this stuff? You could have gave that $4 million away. And his point was they felt like, number one, that God was leading them to launch a new campus. So there's an obedience factor there. But his point was that $4 million investment is what it really became, launched a new location. That location launched new locations. And he said now they give away to missions every single year, way more than $4 million. And his point was the critics would say, oh, I could give away $4 million and, a one-time gift and pat me on the back. Look, I did a good thing. He said, or a kingdom investment is you invest the $4 million and it becomes way more than $4 million that's actually being given away every single year. And I think the connecting dots here is that even when you talk about next step in giving, like that's not to, so that Chip can drive a brand new, nice, maxed out vehicle or whatever. Like that's not
if you know Chip, it's better chance that he's going to be trying to get golf clubs. But neither one of those is accurate. Truck's not where it's at. Truck's in the shop.
Exactly. But the point is, money has been hijacked in the church. Let's just say that. It's been abused. Jesus has been manipulated so people can get rich. Let's just call it what it is. But there is still the essence of the New Testament is there's a generosity that is involved. But to connect the dots here, through giving from churches is what enabled you guys to go to Japan to do disaster relief efforts in a completely different culture after devastating flooding. And so even the giving thing, think of it like if done through generosity and obedience, because it flows out of your relationship with Jesus. It's actually an investment that reaches places that you could never reach all by yourself.
Yeah, it takes dollars to do ministry. Bottom line. I mean,
but God can multiply those dollars, because those dollars that you may have never even realized, like, oh, I gave X amount of dollars, but that multiplied in the kingdom sends a team to Japan. I mean, I think we just don't even connect those dots
and
sometimes.
That's the power, I think, of being a part of something like the Florida Baptist Convention is, named the Orchard Community Church. A lot of people initially assume we're non-denominational, and we're not. We are a Florida Baptist church, and disaster relief is one of the reasons why. Because were we able to mobilize teams and volunteers during the last storms? Absolutely. I think when we added it up, we mobilized over 100 volunteers to feed, to clean up, to tree work, all the stuff. And yet that is nothing compared to what happens when we partner with other like-minded churches across the state to mobilize 3,900 volunteers and feeding kitchens and hours. And so it's that idea you mentioned before, partnership with the gospel, that we are saying, look, when we take the little bit we can do and combine it with everybody else, it does a lot. And that's true financially as well. When people at the Orchard take their next step in giving, and multiple people do that, and then we take our share as a church and contribute it to the state convention, and then other churches contribute to state convention, now we have an entire ministry that is sitting on go when disaster strikes to mobilize for the sake of the gospel and the good of our neighbors.
Mm-hmm. And, disaster relief ministry is, I think, and I did an interview with Sin Relief or Baptist Press, I don't remember, with
probably not as big a deal as this podcast, to be honest.
No, this will have a lot far-reaching, great
dozens
impact.
of listeners, David, dozens of listeners.
But it was during October. We were in Port Charlotte, and of course, October is Cooperative Program Month, and there's no greater picture of the cooperative program in its intent, which is more than money. It was not just a funding mechanism. It really is the greatest picture of the cooperative program that we have, because you've got not only the financial resources that come into play, but you've got states who are partnering together and cooperating together to accomplish a mission, and that was the intent of the designers of the cooperative program. This year's 100-year anniversary of it, so let's highlight it. But
and I think that's a really good point, because again, people who assume we're non-denominational find out we're Southern Baptist Church. What's the cooperative program? They don't know. Well, they ask me, so why are we a Southern Baptist Church? My number one answer: cooperative program. Cooperative program is the best idea that churches have come up with for ministry and missions. And to be frank, and David, I'm not including you in this. So, Dr. Rummage, if you're listening to this, not including David in this. But there's some times when I ask myself, as lead pastor here at this church, why are we still Southern Baptist, with some of the just fighting and just sometimes straight ungodliness that goes on amongst, some circles. And we don't have to get into all that. Sometimes you're thinking, man, it's just easier to not. Yeah. But then when you see the power of gospel partnership for ministry and mission, that's why we're here. We fund theological education. We respond to natural disasters. We put missionaries on the field who don't have to come back home and raise money so that they can follow God's call in their life. That's why we're in it. And that's why it was so important for us, David, to have you on today, is so many people who attend here at the Orchard, or even in general, don't know about that side of things. And one of the things we try to do in these podcasts are to even share some stories, like some personal connections. And so I'm curious, in your years, staff or volunteer, serving in disaster relief, are there any stories that pop up in your head that are like, yeah, this is memorable. This is what it's all about. This is where God spoke to me.
Yeah, there's a bunch of them. There's a couple of them that when I took a group of students, we went 3 different times to New York, Staten Island, because that's where Sin Relief NAM had the collegiate response location was on Staten Island, and I took students 2 Christmas breaks and 1 spring break and there was a lady we were doing her house. People were having conversations. What we encourage our volunteers to do, our teams, is at least that's what I did, was if you're kind of taking a break or, getting a breather, make sure you're interacting with the homeowner if they're on site and talking to them and, engaging them in conversation. So this lady was very receptive, and there was a young couple. They were engaged at the time, and she was really receptive to the gospel. So I didn't want to do that. I could have taken that and lead and went in and say that. Part of what we're trying to do is train folks, disciple them in the fullness of ministry, not just in the area that they're skilled in. So I sicked those 2 students on her, and basically, and they were able to lead her to the Lord. And so that was fresh and new to them. It's something they had never. It put them out of their comfort zone. It put them kind of on the front lines of ministry to realize, really, this is what being involved in disaster relief is all about. And I've seen that happen, multiple times where homeowners are very open, very receptive.
Well, that's
to
what
that, and
that hands-on ministry, those compassion, mercy ministries, they're open doors for the gospel. Maybe we should say they open doors for the gospel, and that's awesome.
Well, and as a state director, also last year when we were at First Baptist Church Perry, Florida, was for Idel,
Pastor Stephen Ruff.
Yeah, for Idalia, and then we came back, and I had to ask him again if we could come back for Debbie. We were there. There was a 20-day window of time when we finished working the Debbie storm when Helene hit, and I was at the state EOC at the operations center. I was looking for a church in Perry, in Taylor County. I was looking to try to find any location other than First Baptist Church Perry. I was not calling Stephen again. I was even looking at housing volunteers in one location and setting up feeding in another location because of some of the logistical things we have to take into consideration. And it would have been a hardship on us to do it that way, but I was not going to call him. Yeah. And I was in the state EOC trying to work all the maps and look at all the layouts. And I got a phone call. And Stephen said, "You have not asked, but our leaders have already met." And they said, if he asked, the answer is yes.
Yeah. Stephen is a phenomenal guy. He actually, Stephen was my mom and dad's pastor for a season before they relocated for a few years to Jacksonville. And Stephen pastors First Baptist Perry now, massive heart for missions. But the reason that's such a big deal, if you miss that, is it is not easy on a church to be a host site and to do 3, and it had to be less than 12 months.
It was 13 months from day one till Helene hit. And that was our third setup on their location. Yeah, we basically take over a church.
Yeah, and one of the things that we encourage our people to do is sometimes you just got to have your yes on the table, and it sounds nice and catchy and it's simple until you realize the sacrifice involved with it, and until it's the 3rd time in 13 months that you need your yes on the table. But that's, I believe God honors that too. I believe Stephen has done a great job there at First Baptist Perry.
And of course, in the midst of all that, also you had the number one, the leading industry employer in the whole county, and a couple of counties pull out and shut down, and that sent tidal waves across multiple industry in that county. And so he's dealing with all of that. His church had some damage, he had some damage, and then to do that, and that's a direct reflection of leadership, that his leadership, his lay leaders would come and say, this is the answer is yes. There's no question about it.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's really good. So Dave, maybe talk about this for a minute. We've talked about, that these volunteers are trained and, equipped not just for hands-on ministry, but for gospel ministry. So someone is listening to this podcast, and says, you know what, this sounds like something I want to be a part of. What do they need to do if they want to be a part of something like disaster relief?
Well, they just need to start the process. As I said, the first thing they need to do is do a background check. So
Is that something they just do online?
They do it online. flbaptist.disaster.org is off the Florida Baptist Convention website.
Okay, we'll try to drop that in the show notes.
Yeah, and there's links there for the background check, then doing the online training. We're finished with our in-person training. We finished that. We do 7 of those in the spring. We're going to move to fewer of those next year.
And you try to do those in every region, right? There's at least one in every region.
Yeah, we're going to change that model next year and do the even years regions in the even years and do the odd numbered regions in the odd years.
Okay.
So it's just, for us, it's a stewardship.
So if my math is right, that means in 26, if we're region 2, there should be a nearby region or nearby site.
Yep. You'll have training in this region. And
go over the areas again, if you wouldn't mind, of the different places that people may be able to serve in disaster relief.
We have feeding, cleanup, and recovery. Those are our 2 big.
And feeding is preparing, serving?
Basically how feeding works. Our primary feeding partner is Salvation Army.
Okay.
And this is how the feeding process works. Salvation Army has the money, and they have the delivery vehicles. They don't have all the field kitchens or the volunteers that we have. So we set up a feeding kitchen. It's our volunteers. They give us a purchase order number. We order the product that comes in, and then we prepare it. We load it in their delivery vehicles every day. If we're doing 2 meals a day, we'll do a lunch meal and a dinner meal, and we'll send those out. And they'll come back, reload, and do it again for the evening meal. And so then we also partner with, we're a primary feeding partner with the state of Florida, the Division of Emergency Management. We do partner with American Red Cross still, and we still have field kitchens for them. So we're doing, however many thousands of meals that the counties need and are requested, per day.
Yeah.
So we do that. So that's doing large numbers of meals. We're not rolling grills out and there's.
I'm glad you specified that, because 100% I know some guys listening to this like, I got a grill, we can do this.
No, we as a matter of fact at Perry we were checked twice. Now, in Sarasota, we were checked twice with Milton by the health department. We've never failed a health department inspection. If the health department inspects your guys in the parking lot with a grill, they're going to fail every time. So I'm just saying that's, our standards are health department standards, serve safe. Our kitchen leads are serve safe manager trained and tested, and so they have that level of training.
Yeah, and that's the kitchen work.
And that's the kitchen work. It's early, it's fast, it can be hot, and then you get to rest. You don't have to do anything else the rest of the day once you get the meals out, pretty much. And then cleanup and recovery is the big one.
That's what everybody thinks of.
That's what everybody thinks of. We call those our bookend or our anchor ministries. Those are ones that people see, that get the publicity, that get the advertisements, that draw other people in because they want to do that.
Yeah.
So those 2 are the biggies. Yeah. And flood recovery in Florida. So
yeah.
And then we do administration, which all of our stuff, just about everything we do is online now, is digital. We have a digital work order. We have digital rostering process. Everything we do is digital. And
so somebody who may be inclined to that, maybe somebody who's like, hey, I've had administrative experience in the office. That's kind of where I've spent most of my career. I'm retired now. Not really looking to get in the kitchen or a chainsaw, but man, if you need organizing and paperwork and making sure processes are followed, that's my jam.
Yep. We have communications, which we have multiple forms of communication, regular cell phones. We have Starlinks that we use. We are an AT&T FirstNet subscriber, which means if all the cell service goes down, we switch over to a FirstNet service, which is a first responder network.
Okay.
AT&T's version of that, which is a priority network. We also have all of our guys. We have a bunch of guys who are ham radio operators, and even they can send emails to our food vendors or to the state if nothing else through their ham radios. They can do all that. So it's wild.
That's
what
crazy.
they can do. And so communication, chaplains. We have our chaplain teams. And
Well, I'm sure there's a need for that chaplain ministry in these towns where people not just lose life, that happens, loss of life, but loss of property,
Yep.
loss of job. I mean, it's...
And a lot of times our chaplains deal with, our chaplains are more of a triage. It's kind of a quick response kind of chaplaincy because you may only have 30 minutes with a person, whereas institutional chaplaincy, you have days, weeks, years, depending on which institution you're involved in. And so ours is very quick response. It's trauma focused. But we also, our chaplains are trained to minister to each other, to the volunteers.
Oh, that's
so
good.
we'll put a chaplain in the feeding with the feeding team, and we'll put chaplains, keep them on site so that they can kind of walk around and check on everybody. And then we do logistics, which is moving equipment, driving all of our equipment around, moving it to locations. Heavy equipment operation on site, forklift operation, generator repair, equipment repair, anything to do with logistics. Our on-site management team is our safety team. We call them our security team, but they're unarmed security, but they make sure that we're safe. They do 24-hour shifts. They're our asset protection team. They keep the site safe. They function as our safety officer. And then we have children's response. We're revamping that from what it was. We used to do child care, but we don't do child care anymore where people bring their children and drop them off. We do it's more of go to the, while the parents are being dealt with and talked to and ministered to, somebody's just kind of engaging the children, talking to them. They're not counselors. They're not trauma experts in any way. They're just simply there to...
They're just caring for the kids.
Caring for the kids, giving them stuff to do, and making sure that they don't fall through the cracks. And takes longer for them to kind of start the process of recovery when nobody pays any attention to them. So.
Yeah, and I think the big thing maybe to take away from this, if you're listening, is if you don't see yourself as a chainsaw kind of person, that does not mean there's not a place for you to serve in disaster relief.
And that's, when churches tell me that they're, like you guys, you had a bunch of people that went and served and did a lot, and I say, great, that's what we, disaster relief is not a ministry of the Florida Baptist Convention. It's a ministry of the Florida Baptist Convention churches.
That's really good.
Our folks are churches. They're folks out of our churches. What we do is we steward the resources that through their cooperative program giving or their donations we've been able to purchase and have ready and prepared. Churches can't afford to buy the equipment that we have in hand, in stock. So it's our responsibility now to take care of that, steward that, keep it operationally ready, and be prepared so that when an event happens in a community, it's the church's responsibility to respond to that, not mine.
Yeah.
But it's my responsibility to bring your resources to you so that you can respond effectively.
That's really good.
And you can begin to do what you need to do, and we're going to supply, we're going to bring you what you've already invested in through your cooperative program and through donations, and make sure it's ready, make sure that it's working, make sure that it's not going to break down on you and all those things. And so when we hear churches saying, we sent volunteers and we did this, that's great. But you probably only did one thing. And just like you said, if you're listening to this and you really don't want to run a chainsaw, or you don't want to get out and drag limbs or do a mud out, or you can't get on a roof to do a tarp, what else can I do? Well, we've made sure that we've given you a wide range of options. But if you keep doing it by yourself, you're always going to be limited, and you're going to leave a lot of your folks behind who say, well, I really would like to do something. I can't do anything. Y'all are going to do chainsaw work. You've got a group of guys going. I can't go. I'm a 65-year-old widow, or I'm, a guy who's had to retire because I'm disabled and had back surgery. I was a welder all my life and fell off of a pipeline and got injured, or whatever.
Yeah, I think it's funny you say that, because one of the other ways that we responded to the hurricanes, but this one was to, oh shoot, let me look at my coin here that you gave me, Milton. When Milton came through the state, we were not impacted directly, but there were a lot of people traveling through Lake City specifically trying to evacuate. And Lake City, the carpets are going to roll up, at night. It's going to be hard to find a place to eat, especially with some of the stuff going on, the weather coming in. And so our Lake City location, and then we had folks from Branford and Live Oak jump in. We mobilized to provide some meals for them. Some local businesses gave some food. We had don't shout at us, health department guys on the grill, trying to get anything hot we could get hot. And we were passing out flyers, had signs by the interstate exit, hey, free meal if you're evacuating. And the amount of response just from our people who showed up to say, yeah, we want to help with that. And they were different than the people, not all of them, most of them were different than the people who said, hey, we're ready to run chainsaws. I mean, like you say, there's just different ways to respond. And a lot of times in the local church, you're limited in that, and you can get left out because we didn't do a ton of feeding during, Debbie or Helene or Idalia. We did some of that, specifically our Branford location did. But what disaster relief through the convention does is it just takes all of that, puts it under one umbrella, and then makes it accessible outside of your community when that need comes up.
And one of the things that we did in Sarasota with Milton, we signed a new agreement, an SOP with Salvation Army this year. Southern Baptist Disaster Relief did across the country. And there were some provisions in that new agreement that we signed with Salvation Army. One was to allow our chaplains to go with the delivery vehicles or to go to the site, the points of distribution. So if they set up in a Walmart parking lot or at the post office, then our chaplains can be on site. And we did that in Perry. We started doing that. Okay. So we've been sending. When Salvation Army goes, we get their routes for the day, and so our chaplains go and meet them, at those sites, and they're there while they're doing food distribution. The other thing in that was that we could take meals that were prepared, we could add to the meal count, because that's the way Salvation Army gets their reimbursement from the state of Florida, is in food distributed, and so. We order on their purchase order, and then that food comes. We prepare it, and they send it. And in the end, the meals that they actually delivered, they will get reimbursed from the state. They don't do a per meal charge and up that charge. And that's a whole other discussion about there's a lot of money to be made in disaster relief. Yeah. But anyway, what in that agreement was that we could add to the meal count, and we could distribute those meals in other ways through our churches. Okay. So we were in Sarasota. We had kitchens in Clearwater, Tampa, Brandon. No, not Brandon. Church at the Mall. Oh, Lakeland. Clearwater. We had 4 kitchens that were kind of in that Pinellas, Hillsborough, Lake County, all in that, and then Sarasota, our location. We had 7 churches that contacted us, or that we contacted through our regional catalysts and the AMSs. A couple of those churches, like First Plant City and First Baptist Brandon, had asked about having us being a site. I said, well, we've strategically, because of Salvation Army's delivery routes, we have to strategically place our kitchens. Sure. so that they can get the maximum impact in their delivery routes. So we can't put a kitchen everywhere.
Yeah.
But what we can do is we can deliver meals. The church can either pick them up or we will deliver to them. So we had 7 churches over a 7-day period that either picked up 500 to 700 meals a day, or we delivered them to a central location. They picked them up. They went back to their church. They set up a drive-through line. We gave them the food. We gave them the clamshells, the carry-out boxes, and cutlery packs and water. And then they set up a drive-through line with their people. There wasn't a yellow shirt in sight. And we added to the total meal count for that event for Milton, once we shut down the feeding operation, 25,000 meals in that week was added to the meal count. That's 25,000 people that got serviced that would not have got serviced if we hadn't have done that. And we can do that. Every time we set up a kitchen, once we get started, my next call will be, who are the spokes out here?
Yeah, that's really good.
That are willing, number one, that have the volunteers and are willing to invest the time. We can't put a field kitchen there, but we can deliver you food so that then you can minister to your community. You don't have to set up the grills. You don't have to, do those kind of things that realistically it's gonna tax pretty heavy, and you'll eventually run out of food. Whereas with us, and I'm not trying to say that what our churches who are feeding it, from day, when the sun comes up, people are looking for, they disregard that you should be prepared to survive for 72 hours yourselves.
Yeah.
They go through all their bread and milk, the first day. So they're looking.
I don't know what you're talking about, Dave. I keep my hurricane snacks for weeks. I don't know what you're talking about.
But when the sun comes up, they're thinking food and water and power. And, y'all can, churches can get them started. We can come in within a day and then have you feeding your community.
Well, what you said, I think, was a great way to put it. You're just equipping the churches with their resources to meet this need. Yeah. And I think that's a great way to look at it. That's phenomenal to hear. And I want to say this, and again, this is not David who said this, it's me saying this. When disaster strikes, it is not the Republican Party or the Democratic Party or the Libertarian Party or the Communist Party who is stepping up to meet these needs. It is the Church of Jesus on the street corner of your neighborhood that is stepping up to meet these needs. And so let's be very careful where we give generously our allegiance and our resources to. Which are the ones who are doing it to grow their influence, and which are the ones doing it to meet needs and to further the kingdom. And man, it's encouraging to hear the partnerships that we're establishing as a convention through disaster relief in order to make sure that we're getting this as far as we can. And, David would not probably say this on here, but I'll say it on here too. Samaritan's Purse was a big help in our area the last few storms. Southern Baptist Disaster Relief, been here longer, done it better. Just throwing that out there. If you're looking for a place to get plugged in, we love Samaritan's Purse. We support Samaritan's Purse. You got something a lot more local, a lot closer, who's been established longer through the Southern Baptist Disaster Relief. So if you want to get plugged in, that's a great place to get plugged in, is right here with them.
Yeah, and we will be local. If there's one house, we always, every disaster is local, and it starts with that one family that's impacted. So if one house gets hit, you've got a cleanup team in your church, boom, we're going to send you over there. If you got, we had a little tornado outbreak in Holmes County, north of Bonifay, a couple of months ago, and Bonifay, and we had local teams, and that were dispersed. Had a connection with the county emergency management office in Holmes County, and they were dispatching our teams out. And so anything from that one event to the large one, man, we're going to be there. And the big organizations show up when it's a nationwide, when it's a big news event. Local stuff because they're not here.
Yeah.
They're
That's right.
Folks who might volunteer with them are here, but they're the organization that comes and brings all of that stuff. They're not here. They're in North Carolina or they're somewhere else. And so,
whereas I know where a couple of disaster relief trailers are right now.
yeah,
Within a 30-minute drive.
There's also some at Lake
Oh,
Yale.
yeah. We go to camp at Lake Yale, and I was showing the kids. I was like, oh, see all this? This is disaster relief right here.
yeah, and those kids will be exposed to it this next couple of weeks because camp's happening, and we for the last couple of years we've been involved with helping with Super Summer with the children
Have
at
you?
youth camp. Yeah, we've been doing water stations and snow cone machines. Last year we had a couple of breakouts where my associate director Rich Rigdon, who manages our equipment at Lake Yale, he built a mud room and a roof. He taught them how to tarp a roof and how to pull out sheetrock, and so they enjoyed that.
You just immediately got every dad back in absolutely teach my kid how to mud a room. That's good.
And we're taking chaperones for 2026. So
Yeah.
feel free to sign up. So, no, I think this has been great. I'll just say this as we wrap up. And this is new maybe to you. I'll call you Dr. Coggins so that my mom doesn't beat me when she hears this. But a lot of our Impact Tomorrow initiative centers also around this idea of informal missionaries. And when we say that, what we mean is ordinary people who intentionally live on mission. And obviously the focus on that is, where you work, where you call home, where you recreate, that you live with purpose because you know Jesus. You have a message that other people need to hear. And I think as you're describing, who are the people in the yellow shirts and the yellow hats wearing the badges? They're retired folks. They're, state employees. They're people who work and have families. And yet there's an intentionality to these ordinary people who are living on mission, in disaster-stricken areas. And sometimes those are the open doors that we walk through to minister to people with the gospel. And so, I don't know, I've enjoyed our conversation. I hope our people feel better informed, that they feel encouraged. I think now, we have felt the impact of Florida Baptist Disaster Relief. Whether we've known it or not, we've felt that impact because
Look for the yellow shirts.
There were boots on the ground in our counties in the last couple years. These people doing this type of work in our backyards. And so we're grateful for the role that you play in 5-star general sitting in the office, kind of directing the people. I know you would minimize that. You do have a lot of great people. The volunteers are what make this machine go. But you've also given your life to this particular role. And so we're grateful for that and the role that you play.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And, and you're talking about living intentionality. We haven't even talked about the blue sky side of what we do as well. And we've been very intentional about partnering with our churches and associations, with the equipment that we have and the resources that we have to do blue sky events. Kind of like the camps. We helped First Baptist Sarasota on Good Friday with an event they had at their church. We sent a feeding team down to help them. We have a concession unit, kitchen. It's a small, what we call a quick response unit, but think of a food truck kind of concession unit that we make available if associations are having a big event, a gospel event of some kind. We'll send some feeding folks to help. We've fed the National Guard the last few years with their hurricane exercises, and we'll continue to do that every year.
Well, if this is your way of inviting yourself back to the podcast to talk more about it, that's fine. We'll schedule a date. I like it. Let's just hope that it's not because you have to be in the area. Maybe it could just be coming through the area again.
No.
Yeah, well, we really have enjoyed it and appreciate the work, like Matt said. The work that you do, you're making a difference, and you've made a difference right here in Columbia and Suwannee counties for sure.
Yeah. So on behalf of those counties, we say thank you.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
We're thankful for the yellow shirts, the yellow hats, but we hope to not see them anytime soon.
Unless we're getting our own.
Unless you're getting your own and deploying with us.
That's right.
Coming to work. So.
All right. Well, hope you guys will join us back next week on the podcast. And until then, we'll see you later.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of Let's Talk About That. We hope it encouraged and challenged you as we continue to grow on this journey of faith and embrace community together. If you have any questions, thoughts, or feedback, we'd love to hear from you. Reach out to us through our social media channels or visit our website to stay connected. Your support is what makes this podcast impactful. If you found today's discussion meaningful, don't forget to subscribe to the podcast, share the episode with a friend, and leave a review. Your engagement helps us spread the message and connect with others who can be encouraged through these conversations. Until next time, we hope this episode inspired you to live out your faith this week. Keep the conversations alive and remember we're all on this journey together.